It's nothing but that, unfortunately. So again, triggering to anybody who finds it difficult to hear about death and executions. There's a lot of that in this newscast, unfortunately. So on Monday, the Islamic regime hanged 5 more people. We've been averaging about 10 people a week since January. It is absolute craziness. And surprisingly, there are, Amnesty International is somehow finally piping in saying there's a lot of executions happening. Meanwhile, these 10 or the amounts that we mentioned are the amounts that are known to the public. We know that the Islamic regime does a lot behind the scenes and threatens families as well, so they don't come forward. So it's terrifying to think what the real numbers are. From looking to the side, that's where my notes are. So the 5 people the Islamic regime executed on Monday were related to armed drug smuggling in the south of the country. That's what the judiciary says. And CBS News is also reporting that 2 additional people were executed on Monday. I haven't, and again, I try to corroborate the news as much as possible, but this one begs mentioning. These executions, these 2 individuals were convicted of desecrating the Quran and insulting the Prophet Muhammad, and that's why they were hanged this past Monday. The founder of the Oslo-based non-governmental organization Iran Human Rights Watch, his name is Mahmoud Amiri Moghadam. He said the month of May alone, at least 59 people have been executed in Iran. We're halfway through the month now. 59 people. And the number total for the year so far is 223.
What about details on other death sentences?
So there were crowds. If you've been following our newscast and also the stories, there are 3 individuals who are at imminent threat of execution. There were crowds that gathered outside Dast Gid prison in Isfahan on Sunday night, and again tonight. They're there right now. They're obviously dispersed by tear gas, and basically they're protesting at the risk of their own life, trying to save these 3 individuals, the men who've been accused of killing a Basiji. Now, apparently they were televised, shown that they confessed and that they corroborated each other's presence at this so-called death or at the so-called killing. Now, there are different organizations, a group providing legal service to individuals who are in jail, who say that the confessions appear to be fake and forced, and that they were obviously obtained during forced confessions and duress and torture and the rest of the things that we know happen to individuals who are arrested by the Islamic regime. All 3 are reportedly still alive. So, say their names to save their lives, as we've been trying to do with so many detainees. Their names are Majid Kazemi, Saeed Yahubi, and Saleh Mir Hashemi. So if we could, I'll mention them again at the end of this segment so we can use their hashtag, but we're far away, and there was a really sad image. It was Samira Mohieddin, her Twitter account. She posted a picture of a message that came out of Dastgir prison saying, "Please don't let them kill us." So again, trying to make it through one of our segments without crying, but it's a really terrifying situation
I actually
Iranians are in.
I shared that in my story. The mother of Saeeda Yaghubi actually had a video basically asking for everyone to share and how they were given their last meeting with their loved one. It's unreal. It's almost like it's the worst movie you've ever seen, Senior officials got a briefing on Tuesday. It was done in secret and it was about Iran. What do we know about that?
Yes. So it happened in the US, according to Politico.com. It was the Biden administration's first Iran-focused classified session for all senators. We have no clue what was discussed. We don't know what the agenda was. All that we know is that the relations with Tehran are at an all-time low. Nuclear talks are not going well, which we know the Biden administration is very sad about, because we know they want to make a deal with the Islamic regime. One person who is not going to be there is Robert Malley, or who wasn't there because it happened yesterday. It was on Tuesday. Rob Malley did not make it to the meeting, but his stand-in guy, his deputy, his name is Abraham Pali, was there instead. And we know that Rob Malley has been pushing for a nuclear deal. For those who are not familiar with the nuclear deal in Iran, it basically enters into agreement. The United States and the Islamic regime, basically they're going to agree on a price of oil, and the regime gets to keep making nuclear weapons and do what they want, but at a limit. So they're saying that they're going to curb the creation of nuclear weapons. We know all that's going to happen is that they're going to release a bunch of funds that is going to feed the Islamic regime and basically guarantee their existence for many, many more years. There's no word yet on how the meeting went. Politico.com reported on basically the meeting based on confidential and off-the-record information. So we don't know what happened. All we know is that it did happen. But for those who are wondering, like, why does it matter? We don't know what was on the agenda. We don't know what they discussed. But in the coming weeks, depending on their positioning, depending on who speaks up, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, and the agenda that they start moving forward, then we'll know that it was, basically it was born out of whatever happened yesterday.
Changing topics a little bit, the regime has seized another oil tanker, and it looks like the U.S. is going to boost its military presence in the Persian Gulf. What is the story, and what does that mean?
Yes, and before we move forward, we have Real Sophie's World, who's talking about shame on the Biden administration. More than just shame, we totally agree. I'm like going through some of our comments here. Cafe Rahkar says forced confession 100%. Hi Shahla Jun, so many people joining us. Thank you so much for being here week after week. So yeah, the Islamic regime is definitely busy. We're talking about protests and executions, getting the IRGC listed as a terrorist organization. We are, trying to figure out how the Biden administration is going to, figure things out for themselves. And meanwhile, the Islamic regime is seizing oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. Now, people are like, why should we care? Why does it even matter? Like, who cares what's happening in the Persian Gulf right now? We've got bigger fishes to fry. But here's why it matters. For those who aren't aware, the Strait of Hormuz, which is the entrance to the Persian Gulf, is controlled by Iran. So Iran has been on a whim deciding to seize tankers who decide to enter. Now, the Persian Gulf belongs to Iran, but portions of it belong to other countries. It's called nautical borders, and other tankers are allowed to come in and allowed to grab the oil or gas or whatever they're drilling for in whatever area that they're going in. So Iran controls it, but there's different countries who have rights to the waterways as well. So what Iran is doing, in the past 19 days, it has seized 3 tankers. So it is upsetting a lot of other countries. So again, you're wondering, like, why does it matter? It's because more countries are involved. So we keep hearing about the EU, we keep hearing about, European countries, America, Canada, but we're not hearing, like, the seized tankers. One of them, we don't know where it's from. Iran is actually saying it's one of their old tankers that was seized, so now they seized it back. And the other 2 tankers belong to Panama and the Marshall Islands. Now, it matters because, like, Iran and Panama, like, when do we hear we have issues with Panama? If you ever hear that Panama's upset with us, this is why. If you ever hear Marshall Islands are upset with us, this is why. So the regime is saying that the Panamanian tanker was seized on judicial order following a complaint by a plaintiff. But they're not saying who the plaintiff is. We have no idea why this tanker was seized. So you can imagine that Panama is quite upset that their oil tanker has been seized and they haven't been given a reason. Now, the Marshall Islands has responded, and they're saying, and I'm quoting, heightened military activity and geopolitical tensions in these regions continue to pose serious threats to these commercial vessels. Associated with these threats is the potential of miscalculation or misidentification, which could lead to aggressive actions. So if you're wondering why things are happening, and probably some people like, what is even the Marshall Islands and where are they? This is why they would have beef with the Islamic regime.
Thank you so much.
The more you know.
Moving on, so we stay on track. A couple of quick notes about Russia and the Islamic regime. Russia's out of attack drones and looking to get more of where they came from, straight from the Islamic regime. What other support are they getting from their best buddies?
Yeah, Yes, so ABC News says the White House says that Russia has depleted its stockpile and that it's looking to buy additional advanced attack drones from Iran in its war against Ukraine. So they have apparently used up more than 400 drones that they've obtained so far, and they want more. And again, this goes back to that, secret talk that the Biden administration is having with the senators. As we know, the Biden administration and the United States supports Ukraine in this war. And so now they are trying to make a deal with Iran and, have all sorts of appeasements, but Iran is supporting Russia. So this is where the triangle comes in. And I understand these are not the politics or like the news maybe everybody wants to know, but in case you're wondering why decisions are made and certain things happen certain ways, hopefully this type of insight provides you with some understanding of what's happening behind the scenes and what's causing some of these decisions.
Well, we've heard about this regime helping Russia in this war against Ukraine, but now we're finding out one of the ways they return a favor.
Yes, so there are, according to Forbes, there's unconfirmed reports that Iran's press has suggested that Iran and the Islamic regime is going to be getting its first batch of what it's called Su-35s. They're super flankers. And the Islamic regime's news agency, which is IRNA, they first reported that the jets are about to arrive in May, and then all of a sudden the article disappeared. Now, these are fighter jets. Like, acquiring fighter jets is a big deal, especially as we know they've been escalating tensions with Israel. They've been escalating tensions in the Middle East, and it's a big deal because it's a milestone. The Islamic regime has not imported anything of the kind in 33 years. And according to the Forbes article, the last time Iran got something similar was 47 years ago. So when you know that you're not making friends in the region, and on top of that, you're beefing up your army, it's going to be disconcerting to a lot of people.
Okay, in the last few minutes, updates about protesters and detainees.
We've been speaking about, and I definitely wanted to mention it at the top of this segment. Our loved ones, our uniters, our thoughts and our prayers and our loves are with Shahra June and Sam, who are in situations that require prayers and positive energy for their loved ones and their family, and we're thinking of them. And as well as Shiva Saber, relative of hers, has unfortunately been detained unjustly, unlawfully by the Islamic regime. We've been mentioning his story for a few weeks. His name is Hushidar Zari. He was, if this is the first time you're hearing about him, he is a super high-level judo coach. He was going to be an Olympian until the Islamic regime stopped him from getting onto a plane that was going to bring him to the Olympics in Australia simply because he's Baha'i. He is a businessman. He is a family man. He has a wife and daughter, and he was unlawfully detained. He was just one day complete on his way to, he was arrested, taken out of his car, taken to jail. We have absolutely no idea why he was arrested. What we do know is that he is Baha'i, and we do know that they are unjustly targeted at any moment in time simply just for existing. They had no news about him for many weeks, in the entire duration of his arrest. And awful news has come. He has been transferred to a notorious prison in Shiraz. It's called Adel Abad. If anyone's familiar, they know how brutal this prison is. His family did get a chance to see him before he left for that prison, but still no news on why he's been detained. We're using the hashtag #FreeHushidar to help spread his
story. What about
the
action item this week? What are the hashtags we're following?
Absolutely. Majid Kazemi, Saeed Yaqoubi, Salim Mir Hashemi. If you just joined the newscast, these are individuals who are at imminent threat of being executed. Forever, we're going to be talking about IRGC being terrorists. So that hashtag, we speak about Tumash Salehi every single week on this broadcast. So hashtags Tumash Salehi. And of course, the mainstays are hashtag Mahsa Amini and hashtag Iran Revolution. Please, guys, I know it's been a long time, but it's going to keep being a long time. And we're going to keep going as long as we need to, but please don't let these stories die out. We're among the few who are keeping these stories alive. So please, let's keep using these
on
hashtags.
A funny, positive note, your final message to our listeners?
Our language is called Persian in English, and I feel like I keep needing to repeat it because every week I keep hearing people say the word Farsi when they're speaking in English. Farsi is not an English word. The way to say Farsi in English is Persian. That's how we say it. It's not like the word kebab. It's not like the word tadig that it stays, and we even can say kebab or tadig, but the word Persian is the name for our language in English. Let's please use it. And by the way, really quick, something that was extremely upsetting and that everybody should know about, when I was talking about the vessels and the oil tankers, it was a Reuters news article. And if you go Google Iran oil tankers and Reuters, you're going to see never once do they say Persian Gulf. The Reuters article mentions it as the Gulf, and the image they have, which is a screenshot of the US Navy, it calls it the Arabian Gulf. So if you guys care at all, I know these seem like really trivial. They're not. Let's use our names. Let's use the words correctly.
Thank you so much, and listen, for 40, God knows how many years, we've all, present company included, have been incorrect about it. So you're going to have to give us more than just 20 weeks to fix 40 plus years of screwing it up, okay? But we're trying our best. At least you help us catch ourselves thanks to these last minute segments.